So as they say, time flies when you're having fun. And man, I can't believe we only got one episode left of Lovecraft Country. But before we talk about that, we're talking episode 9 of HBO's Lovecraft Country, which was titled Rewind 1921, where we see Christina's plans of revenge come into fruition. We have a character coming back from a trip, and we take a trip back to 1921, where Montrose confronts his past. We're going to talk about that and much more. Episode 9 of HBO's Lovecraft Country was titled Rewind 1921, with Hippolyta at the helm. Leti, Tick, and Montrose travel to 1921 Tulsa in effort to save Dee. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, review of the latest episode of HBO's Lovecraft Country. We're talking episode 9, which means we only got one episode left, but we're talking episode 9, Rewind 1921, which was a very interesting episode, to say the least, and we're going to break it all down in this spoiler review. Before we dive into it, as you can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts. That way you all can stay up to date with what's going on over here at Movie Files. If you are new to this channel, welcome to the channel, Movie Files. Make sure you hit that notification bell when you subscribe so you don't miss any of my other Lovecraft Country coverage, my other TV show reviews, movie reviews, live streams, all the fun things we do on this very channel. Make sure you all give this video a thumbs up. Really helps out the channel, but also really appreciate it. And guys, for those that are watching this premiere, the live chat, leave your comments in the live chat, but also those watching this replay, make sure you leave me your thoughts on your pros, your negatives, your theories about the finale. Let's have a great discussion about this episode and just talk about this show that we love, which is Lovecraft Country. So as I do every week, just giving you all my overall thoughts before we break it down in this recap. I have to say, I've seen the episode twice now, and the first half to me was solid, but not as strong as the second half. I say that because, yes, the first half of this episode, we get some big reveals, right? We obviously get the truth about Tick and Montrose and Uncle George. We get the Captain Lancaster final moments. We, of course, get Hippolyta, a.k.a. Sarah Connor, a.k.a. Doctor Who, a.k.a. Doctor Strange, make her return. But for me, the second half of this episode made this episode fantastic. It hit me on such an emotional level, which we'll talk about when we get there, but I legit got emotional, guys. I legit teared up in this episode towards the end, and we'll obviously discuss that a little bit later, but man, I thought the second half was incredible, and I feel like some of those big reveals in the first half were a little bit underwhelming, and we'll get into it. So with that being said, let's just jump right into this recap. So we pick up immediately after the events of episode 7, which last time I remember us picking up so quickly from one episode to another was probably episode 1 and 2. Everything else has been like days ahead, weeks ahead, some cases. So I love that we just kind of pick up where we left off in episode 7 with Dee being attacked by the Topsy girls and having her arm infected. And we'll talk about that here. So in this scene to open up the episode, we see Dee, Ruby, Letitia, Tick, Montrose, all just kind of seeing Dee unconscious, right? And we hear them bickering about who was watching who and who didn't let, all this stuff. As I mentioned last week, it's just like, you guys are all to blame because you didn't keep an eye on Dee. You're worried about your own stuff, your baby mama stuff, and, Gia coming back. So everyone's at fault for losing Dee and having what happened to her. So as we kind of move forward, we see that her arm just appears to be dead at this point, which got me theorizing. When we heard Tick say that he had someone rip him out of the portal before he saw his son in the white riots, I was thinking to myself, wait, could it be Dee? Because her arm might be mechanic and might not be the same after these events. Could it be obviously Hippolyta? Could it be one of the robots, the celestial beings? But I was thinking, could it be Dee? We'll talk about that a little bit. Either way, we see, again, this family drama as Tick wants to call Christina for help in exchange for Titus's pages, but Leti tells him that she unfortunately already gave her the pages to protect him, but in exchange, we know how that scene played out last week where, Christina was like, nah, I'm good with protecting Tick. I want to protect you because we know that she doesn't want to protect Tick because she needs Tick for her plan to come to fruition. So we see that conversation take place. We see Montrose is obviously pissed at this news, thinking that she's being selfish and only looking out for herself. And we see Ruby was just about to say, well, she's protecting herself because she has a kid in her stomach, but she stops herself, or I should say Letitia stops her. But we all know, Montrose already knows what's going on, and his grandson is, in the stomach there. But either way, we move forward. We see Ruby tells them that not all their cards have been used. They still have another ace in the hole, and that's herself. Ruby says that Christina will do this for her. And, we get this kind of interesting kind of psycho music that ends out the scene. But either way, we kind of transition where we get Christina in the mix with Tick, Montrose, Letitia, Ruby, and Dee in this scene here. And Christina looks over the drawings. Again, a lot of you all have mentioned, why did she draw those pictures? Well, it was her way of kind of telling whoever finds these pictures, this is what's happened to me. This is what's been chasing me, to kind of, again, she's smart just like her mom. So that was really great. We see Christina talks about the drawings in the detail and what happened to Dee, and Christina needs the book of names. So I'm just, again, we've heard the books of names. We've seen, the Sons of Adam. I'm still kind of wishing those things were a little bit more fleshed out and a little bit more explained. The book of names, as we assume, is the rising the dead, of whatever the case may be. But what's the importance of the book of names? Let me know if I'm completely missing something, if I'm forgetting something. But let me know, why is it so important to have the book of names, and what the book of names can do to cast this spell away from Dee. Let me know if I'm completely off track with not knowing exactly what it is. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the live chat for those watching this premiere review. But we see that they make a deal. They cut a deal. Christina's like, I'll temporarily remove this if Tick agrees to go back in time to episode 2 to take, to have that ritual play out. And Tick agrees to do that to save his niece. So very interesting things, to say the least. So, we see Christina goes out and says she has to make some runs and some errands, and it's up to Montrose to save Dee because she's the closest to kin. And we see Montrose, how he takes that pressure with drinking, and obviously we get the reveal in a little bit here. But before we get to that big reveal, we have a pretty big moment here. We get William and Captain Lancaster. As I had mentioned in my review last week, I don't think this is the last time we're going to see him, which it wasn't, because we see he's back alive. We see that this is something I want to talk about in the comments. Let me break down the scene, recap it right quick. So after weeks of speculation of what the hell is going on with Captain Lancaster and what he's doing with the black torso and what he's doing with the guy in the closet, we finally get some light on it. We see that he's been using, and we all kind of speculated this with him and Dr. Epstein, they've been using black people's body parts to continue to regenerate himself. Whenever he's hurt, whenever he's killed, like last week, he's using their body parts. They have this spell that brings him back to life, similar to the metamorphosis that Christina has in regards to, taking a appearance of someone. He's been able to use these spells to just bring him back to life, and using these body parts to continue his life and continue his horrendous things that he does as a police officer. So we see Christina / William take that magical object that Ruby put in Captain Lancaster's office in episode 5, and I am to assume that little object, which we really don't know the origins of it, but that object stops him from regenerating himself. And we see, they have this moment where they have the conversation about Christina having her revenge and how she wanted him to die 1,000 times to make revenge for William. And we see Captain Lancaster dies. But let's talk about the scene, guys. As we see Captain Lancaster closes his eyes, we assume he's dead. Let me know, again, for those watching a live stream or live review and those that are watching the replay, it's kind of underwhelming. We still don't know who the hell that guy was in the closet. Again, let me know if you guys know who that is or speculate who it is, or he could, come in the full circle episode 10 finale. But we don't know who he was and why he was in the closet. We don't know, is this really the last time we're going to see Lancaster? We don't know what that object was, and I guess it just stops spells from happening. And I just felt like the reveal was just underwhelming. I'm not going to lie. Let me know what you guys thought about Captain Lancaster. Is this literally the last time we're going to see him? How do you feel that this, this particular subline or this storyline, this plot concluded? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you want some more from it? Is this the last time we're going to see it? Let me know in the comments. So we kind of move forward to Tick and Montrose. Again, another big moment. But ladies and gentlemen, we've been speculating this since episode 2 with Uncle George being Montrose, or I should say being Tick's dad. And it's in this conversation, Tick saying, Dad, you got to do what you got to do. You're drinking this homemade gasoline that Uncle George made, and he's all nervous about the situation. It's not because he's going to give blood to, save Dee. It's because he's going to drop this bomb on his son, Tick. As he mentions to Tick, guys, he says that, he doesn't say he is your father, but he says George may be your father. So there's still a little bit of wiggle room of kind of maybe Tick and Montrose are father and son. Obviously, I think this does confirm that George is his father, but we really don't have full confirmation. But it's in this scene that I'm thinking, like, so when Montrose says, he tells Tick that based on the night of the massacre, they have this unbreakable bond. And I'm thinking to myself, what kind of bond is that? Yes, you guys almost died that night, and we'll talk about, the Tulsa massacre, but it's just like, what was this agreement? Like, obviously, we saw back in the day that Dora and George were a thing. They were going to go to prom together. They were probably going to live their life together, but things changed, and they have this agreement, I guess, that Montrose is married to Dora, but can have sex with her brother, and there's this bond. So I'm thinking, okay, so that means that Letitia and Tick and Ruby can just, can share each other's lovers, I guess. Is that what that means? But nonetheless, we see Tick attempts to, Tick admits that he wanted Uncle George to be his dad his whole life. Whenever, Montrose would beat him, he would always think about Uncle George being his protector and being his son. But it's Leti who comes in and kind of stops the conversation and tells them that Christina is back from her errands. And out of the blue, we get Hippolyta, ladies and gentlemen, again, back in episode 7. After I listened to the podcast that they do for Lovecraft Country, the writers of the show said that we might not see her again, but she makes her return, out of the blue. Hippolyta is back from her trip, and she's like, wait a minute. D sick, kind of like, where you been at, Mama Bear? You've been missing this whole time. But again, guys, let me know in the comments, is it 100% sure that we think that George is his dad? Is it still some hope, and there's still some kind of misunderstanding that it could be Montrose's son? He had sex with Dora. He was a bisexual. It was just, they had this unbreakable bond. Let me know exactly who you guys are thinking is the actual father of Tick, and let's just have a discussion in the comments about that. So again, we have, we transition over to Dee and Christina and Hippolyta. So we see in this scene, we see Dee is, transforming into this Topsy character as the spell is kind of taking over her. And we see that they perform the spell and the effects of the dead bugs come out of her arm. And it appears that her arm is fine. Who knows if she's the metal arm person that pulled Tick out of the portal. But it seems like it's temporarily healed at this moment. So from that scene, we transition to just a WTF moment for me, for Ruby character in particular. We see Ruby and Leti walking out to the street as Christina's waiting for Ruby and actually waiting for Leti as well. But we see this is the definition of the pot calling the kettle black, as Ruby tells Letitia that she needs to open her eyes and to get out of her feelings about Tick and Montrose. Meanwhile, she's in cahoots with Christina. It's just like, open your damn eyes, Ruby. Yeah, you're playing her to a certain extent to get what you want, but you're still kind of, you kind of whipped from Christina in a sense, right? You kind of love this kind of weird relationship you guys have. So it's just like, you're caught up in Christina's web. So open your damn eyes, Ruby. I love Ruby, but it's just like, come on now. But Ruby, she lets Letitia know that she should be joining Christina for all the things that Christina has done for her so far. And Letitia hits her with the fact that Christina's plan will most likely kill her man, kill the father of her child, and that she can't be trusted, guys. And Christina's, it doesn't stop Ruby from ultimately leaving her sister. I still think that Ruby's gonna be there when she needs to be there. She makes a promise to, we'll talk about that scene here in a bit, but I'm just like, Ruby, you need to check yourself, man, before what they say, check yourself before you wreck yourself back in the day. But either way, move forward. We got Hippolyta, Tick, and Montrose in this next scene. We see Mama Hippolyta now back in mama mode as she gathers her things to go back in the multiverse time machine to go back to Tulsa and to get the book of names. And this is where Hippolyta has like a mic drop moment for me, guys. This is where she doesn't need the key to start the time machine because she has a new tech in her wrist. She's been on Earth 504 and has spent 200 years there gaining wisdom, and now can use this power to save her daughter. So now, like I said, Hippolyta is Sarah Connor. She's Doctor Who, she's Doctor Strange, and she's just a badass. She's ready to go to work, and I kind of love that moment there. So let me know what you all thought about this kind of that moment where she's been gone. She took a little trip in time, 200 years in her Earth 504, but now she's back to save her daughter. Let me know what you guys thought about that scene. So moving forward, back to Ruby and Christina. Ruby asks about Dale, kind of some small talk, right, to get into the big talk, the root of the problem, which is she asks her, is Christina using her? Which, I mean, we all know the truth, but Christina, they have a conversation, which I actually really liked here. We see She asks her about D, just using Tick to get, helping D to get to Tick, her ultimate goal, right? And she admits, right? She says, yeah, I saw an opportunity, I took advantage of it, and it hit me there. This is why Ruby and Christina vibe so much, right? Is because they're both selfish characters, and they say opposite attracts to each other, but sometimes like-minded people get into the same mindset. So there's that relation. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but Ruby connects to Christina because she's a go-getter and she puts herself before others. And I think ultimately that's what they really see in each other. But moving forward within this scene, Christina admits that the spell will indeed kill Tick from needing his blood, but we get her motives fully kind of fleshed out. As she explains in this scene, guys, her father's intentions with magic involve earthly issues such as money, politics, for bending the world to their will, and she wants to experience it all. She wants to experience it first. She wants a eternity of first. So that means she wants to, again, I've been theorizing for weeks that Christina wants to go back to Adam and Eve and change the landscape of how men and women are perceived in the world as we know it. So after hearing this, Ruby tells Christina to promise her not to hurt her sister. Can we trust her? Only time will tell. Which leads me to say, guys, let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about Christina's plans? What do you think she wants to do in regards to this eternity of first? Does she want to go back to Adam and Eve? Does she want to change the spectrum as regards how men and women are treated in the world? Let me know your thoughts on Christina's plans. So we move forward. We see Kentucky on the screen, different from the Mayfield that we got a couple weeks ago, which, Mayfield is in Kentucky. But nonetheless, we see our crew getting things together. And just a side note, this is a nice little moment. This is what happens when you allow people of color to write for people of color, right? I love this moment where, Tick is kind of putting the circuit box together and he asks, his auntie, hey, am I doing this right? It's like, hey, it's the same way I used to tell you to do Dee's hair, to French braid her hair. I just love that moment because it just kind of shows you just the little details, right? I just love it. It's something minor, but I love that moment. But either way, Montrose and Letitia have a talk about Montrose knowing that she's pregnant, and she tells her that, Tick went to the future and learns that, he dies and why he didn't tell her, and they have a little moment. But also it's in this moment that she finds out that it's a boy, and handing over those pages, Letitia could be responsible for Tick's life, which is a really interesting kind of conversation being had there. And we'll see if there's anything that can change of that future that's been predicted for them. So we move forward. We see cyborg Hippolyta telling them that she needs a mother box, and Letitia's like, what the hell is a mother box? As we know, she has so much knowledge now. But Hippolyta tells them that to leave their BS aside. So they're going on the journey back to 1921 Tulsa, as she has her technology in her wrist, and to they're going to go back to the Book of Time and go back to get the Book of Names from the house, and they're on this mission. But she tells them to put your BS aside because you have to save my daughter. You're on a mission to save my daughter. So all the drama, Tick, Montrose, Letitia, Tick, all you, put it aside to save our daughter. We'll talk about putting things aside here in a bit, but we see Montrose has a bit of a hesitation before he goes in the portal, because you got to remember, this Montrose, there's still some things we got to pick from Montrose, killing, Yahimi and doing all this stuff. He's been doing Sammy not being himself and all this stuff. There's still some things to pick with Montrose, but you got to remember his mindset. For the first time ever in his life, he's kind of coming to his own. So going back to this dark moment of his time, there's definitely some understanding of why he doesn't want to jump into the portal. But nonetheless, we see the portal opens and we're in 1921. Montrose, Tick, and Letitia are in this timeline. And you got to remember, my time travel fans like myself out there, the rules of time travel don't change the past. So we see the streets of 1921 Tulsa. We hear the rumblings of the Booker T. Washington prom has been canceled. We learn that this is the night that Dora's family dies, which we'll talk about that scene. Obviously, we see our crew blending in. I don't know why Letitia decided to not get some different shoes than the one she was wearing, and made it very obvious that she wasn't from the past. But as we kind of move forward, we see how this is affecting Montrose. The trauma, him remembering the stuff that happened at night, is really painful for him to relive. We see Tick doesn't take Hippolyta's advice as they yet again put their stuff in the forefront. And not for 2 minutes, man, they can't put their BS aside. We see Tick and Montrose having a fight because Montrose is a little bit, he's a little woozy from taking some drinks, going back to the past, telling his son that he might not be his son. So there's a lot that's on Tick's mind, but they have their fight, and, they ultimately decide that once D is saved, that they're done. I don't think that's going to happen because I think they've kind of amended their relationship, but it's just like, guys, seriously, stop being so goddamn selfish and get your head in the game. We see a young Montrose getting his ass. I mean, this is old school, man. I didn't grow up in this era where I got whooped by switches, but my grandmother did, and she used to tell me those stories of how her parents would make her pick a switch to whoop her ass with. So, I mean, we get that moment there, which, by the way, that actor was just in Crown or Charm King City, which check out my review for that film. Really good movie on HBO Max. But as I digress, we see him whooping his son with this switch because his son Montrose has a flower in his ear, alluding to him being soft, but also alluding to him being more of a father towards George versus being more of a father towards, his son Montrose. We see the scene kind of plays out. We see Dora, man. Montrose sees his mom, which I still think Dora's alive, man. Or I said Tick sees his mom. I think Dora is still alive somewhere, somehow. We'll figure that out later on. But we see, Dora telling George, man, you should have stepped up for your brother. You can't just let your dad do what he does and treated him this way. And we see their dad even tell George, like, at least it's not one man in the house, alluding to his son being, soft or whatever the case may be. But really interesting moment, to say the least. And we see, again, within this scene, Dora and George were on the path to being a thing before we ultimately know who marries who. So we move forward. We see the events start to play out and the theories start to come on. I mentioned it weeks ago. Could it be that, and I think we mentioned on our live stream that we had a couple weeks ago here on this channel for Lovecraft Country, that could it be that Tick is the one that saved Montrose and George and Dora that night? And we'll get to that scene obviously here in a bit. We see Letitia getting chased by these white men, as he says, that line was kind of cheesy, very terrifying, no less. But that line that he said to Letitia was kind of corny, if I'm not gonna lie. We see the white people shooting at her, but to the rescue of Montrose's dad and Dora's dad, they save her. We see the moment where Montrose is thinking that he's gonna save George, he's gonna tell George in the future he's gonna die, but no, Montrose is there to tell his friend Tommy that he's gonna die, which is important for Montrose because it was someone that had feelings for Montrose, and Montrose told him that he's not gay, they can't be friends anymore. But a really, really big moment because it was something that Montrose buried so deep inside of him, he didn't even remember his name, as he says. So really an impactful moment. But again, this is where Tick convinces him not to save him and kind of hitting him with the Back to the Future stuff, tropes that we see, that if you end up doing this, I'm not going to end up being a son, I'm not going to exist. So I love kind of that Back to the Future moment. Montrose continues to try to save his friend for his own motives. Again, these selfish characters, but attempts to do so. But we ultimately he this is a beautiful scene because as we see Tommy does ultimately die, he doesn't change the past, but he tells Tick, there were so many sacrifices that I had to make to be your father. And even though, and again, he says it in this scene, we even know when your mom Dora got pregnant and we maybe thought it was Uncle George's, again, maybe thought it was Uncle George's, not confirming it, not having a Maury show of you other father moment or a blood test, but they think he's a father. He wanted Tick to be his son no matter what. So just a really, really good moment. And I love kind of that scene with that they have in that moment. But this is where things kind of get really emotional for me. He doesn't change the past. Montrose sees everything plays out. And I believe, when we get this moment again, I'm going to talk about why it hit me emotional. But we see, Dora's grandmother confronts Letitia about her suspicions of her being someone that she's not who she is due to her shoes. And she convinces her that she is from the future and she needs the Book of Names. She learns, Dora's grandmother learns that her family is going to die that night. And again, just kind of a little side note, this is what gets me emotional, guys. It was tough to watch. And she, knowing the fact that Dora's grandmother could have saved her family, but she didn't because of, what Letitia told her about changing the past. And I'd just love to know in the comments right now and people watching replay, what would you guys have done if you were Dora's grandmother in that situation? Would you had saved your family or do what she ultimately did, which is the ultimate sacrifice of her family? And she says, which was just such a beautiful line, She says to Letitia, she gives her the book and does it because her great-great-grandson is born and he will be her fate turned to flesh. Such a great line. And we're cutting in between these two scenes. And while we're doing this, we see that Dora's grandmother and Letitia are praying and we're seeing the fire consuming them. And we'll talk about this moment here in a bit. But in between that scene, we see the tales of the man that saves Montrose, Dora, and, Uncle George come true as, Tick's like, what's happening? We must have messed up the past. And he sees the bat. I absolutely love that moment when he's swinging the bat like Jackie Robinson, hitting those white people in the face, the blood coming out. Again, the finales of these episodes have been fantastic. This is definitely one of my favorite moments, crowd-pleasing moments, no doubt. But it's this moment here. We get this poem from Sonya Sanchez, an American poet, writer, and professor. She's one of the leading figures in the Black arts movement. We hear a song play out, Don't Kill Dub, from a 2001 album, Don't Kill Rob. And I'm telling you guys, it's in this moment where I got emotional because seeing Dora's grandmother burning alive just makes me think of all the pain and suffering my ancestors went through to get me to where I'm at now in 2020, recording this video on YouTube, on my channel, having my voice being heard. It kind of hit me on this moment, man. And it's just like, yes, we have our own things that we go through as minorities in America and injustices and all that stuff, but imagine how different things will be if our ancestors didn't step up to make the ultimate sacrifices to get the things done that they did in the past to get where we are now as a society. It's also in this moment that within the confine of the show, seeing Tick saving his dad, his uncle, his mom makes me think in the moment, this is why I love shows and movies like this, what would I have done? Imagining myself in that position, seeing my ancestors, seeing my great-great-grandmother or whatever the case may be, being a victim of racism, how I would have been in that position, right? So it's just like, it's moments like this that make this show special for me. I know it has its flaws, it's very unorthodox TV formats where it's, anthology week to week, different flavor of the week, but this is why this show is special to me. It's because moments like this, it speaks to me, makes me think about my past, my family heritage and all that stuff. So this is a reason why I love this show. And again, within the confines of the episode, it's just emotional, seeing their grandmother, knowing that her kids are going to die, burning alive, seeing her face when she's burning alive. I mean, it's one of the most impactful, most powerful moments of the show, and one of the most powerful moments I've seen on TV all year, and that's just on a personal level for me. So moving forward, now, before people complain, again, I know there's nitpicking things we could do with the show, like, okay, the book didn't burn. Why didn't Montrose, George, and Dora remember their own son's face? Well, more so Dora because she's dead, but, Montrose and George, why didn't they remember that they saw Tick that night? Well, listen. That was a traumatic night. It's easy for them to forget however many years ago, 40 plus years ago, they had everything they were going through. Plus, I mean, again, I mentioned Back to the Future. Marty's parents didn't remember his face when they were in high school at the prom. So I'm in the whole book thing not catching on fire. I assume the book didn't catch on fire because Letitia had the book and she has the spell on her. So, of course, I know people are going to probably nitpick that, but I didn't have a problem with that. So, back to the Tulsa riots, guys. We see this yet again, this moment in history that this show has done such a great job of displaying pivotal things, Emmett Till and the riots that we get in this episode. It wasn't something I learned in school. The Tulsa riots, I had no idea about. I learned about it in church when I was a little kid, but a lot of people knew about it from the last year's episode 1 of Watchmen. But we see Tick and Montrose. This moment here, so Tick and Montrose go back to the portal. They notice that Letitia's not back yet. Tick jumps into the portal because Montrose says there's something wrong with the portal, and he goes in. We see, Hippolyta is like, I can't hold it much longer, and the portal shuts. I'm like, is this the end of the goddamn episode? They're going to be stuck in 1921, but no, we'll move forward here. We see Montrose. This is a powerful moment. He relives all that stuff. He says in his head, the doctor that dies, the people that got shot in the face. I mean, it was just such a great moment for that character because he's having to relive this tragic night, which was just, he's overlooking the massacre. Just the shot was just incredible. We see that as the episode ends, guys, Hippolyta turns into Thor Ragnarok as she lifts in the air trying to reopen the portal, and she sees Letitia. This image here, because Letitia's my favorite character, as I mentioned several times. Her walking through the streets of Tulsa in this destruction, bombs are literally in front of her and she's walking through the bombs. I thought that image, just as this frame in my head. I thought that was so dope. And then seeing Hippolyta's hair turn blue and all that stuff was just incredible scene. I thought that moment was so powerful. But another epic, we wrap up the episode. Letitia and Montrose come out of the portal. They got the Book of Names, which I still don't know what the hell the Book of Names is going to do, but we're going to find out in the finale. But as I wrap up this recap review, going into the positives and negatives here, again, I would love to know you guys' thoughts of this episode, but just overall thoughts. I liked the first half of this episode. I didn't think it was as strong as the second because I thought that those reveals of Lancaster, the reveal of Montrose, in the tick scene was just a little bit underwhelming. We've been waiting weeks for this moment, and I felt like it just was not as impactful as I wanted it had been. But again, when Hippolyta comes to the story, she's back. Sarah Connor, like I mentioned several times, she's back to save her daughter. And I assume now they can save her daughter with the Book of Names. We'll see what happens with all that stuff. But the second half to me is what makes this episode fantastic. Again, man, I got teary-eyed when I saw Dora's mama burning alive, sacrificing her family's life to protect the future, man. And it just made me think again of my ancestors and the sacrifices they made. So this episode, man, just hit me on just another level, emotionally speaking. I thought it was a fantastic episode through and through, but just a really solid second powerful act. So let me know in the comments, guys. And then also let me know something, those that are still watching this live stream and watching this replay. October 14th, which is a Wednesday, do you guys want to do a live stream where we can talk everything up into this point, episode 9, before we go into the finale? Would you guys like to see myself, hopefully some guests, Wednesday night stream for October 14th going live? Let me know if that's something you guys would be into, for we can talk about everything up to the finale. Let me know in the comments, and let me know those that are still in the live stream. And make sure those that are watching live stream that you give this video a thumbs up, and continue to let me know your comments, because I read the comments. I'm in the live stream watching this with you guys because I love talking with you all. So what questions do we have left? So number one, again, we have the Book of Names. What now? Will Tick follow through with his promise to Christina, going back to the past and doing that ritual of episode 2, which means we're going to see Samuel, which means we're going to see Uncle George, right? If we go back in time, we'll see what comes of that. Will Tick fight back against her? Are all the bad people off the table? Will Gia make a return? She can take souls, but can she give people souls? We'll see if she makes a return. Will we learn more about Hannah? Who is Letitia's father? That's something that we really haven't learned. Will Christina break her promise to Ruby and ultimately take away her invisibility spell for Letitia, and that metal arm that saved Tick? Whose arm was that, guys? So, and then, of course, what do we expect in the finale? As always, guys, thank you for watching this review. Those watching the live premiere of this episode, thank you for tuning in. Give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already, and continue your conversations in the chat, because I read them and I interact with you all. And those watching the replay, like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a potential live stream October 14th. Let me know if you're interested. You also don't miss my finale review of the show, and then all the other TV shows that I watch on HBO, other streaming services. So definitely hit that bell so you don't miss any of my movie reviews, live streams, all that fun stuff. Guys, you're awesome. I appreciate all the support. Hope you enjoyed this review. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you have a great week. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you guys in the next video.